Welcome back, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cam'Ron Johnston. These are your other co-hosts, Tyler Britton and Jacob Boyers, joining us today. The Kentucky Wildcats find a way to beat the Lipscomb Bisons, and by find a way, I mean they thoroughly destroyed them from start to finish in this game. Come out victors, 97-68, to continue the quest of 40-0 that we talked about last week. Starting off 4-0. Tyler, what'd you take away from some of this game?
Yeah, they're definitely on track to go 40-0, huh? But, look, I think Lamont Butler had a really good first half here. I think Jackson Robinson had the best game of the season so far. So definitely some promise there going, game 5 here. Looking forward to see what they can do for the rest of the season here.
Yeah, Cats, thoroughly roll. To your guys' point, 40-0 is still on the table. I'm getting excited for it, starting to dream. But more of what we've seen from this team all year. First Kentucky team, I'm pretty sure I heard ever. If not, it's been since like the early 90s to start their first 4 games making 10 threes. This style of basketball, it's a lot of fun to watch, but also like they're very efficient at it. And Jackson Robinson finally, Cam, you mentioned it last week on the pod. We really wanted to see him kind of just use this game as a stepping stone to the rest of the year, and kind of get his Kentucky career jump started. And he comes out and scores 20 and does it extremely efficiently. So those were my big takeaways. What about you?
Speaking on Jackson Robinson, we had talked about it on the last podcast that we did right after the Duke game about his body language. He actually came out and apologized to his teammates before the Lipscomb game about that, talked about it on the broadcast immediately following the game. So it was good to see one of what we think should be one of the leaders of this team step up, take accountability, put that hand up, say it was on him. I mean, he went 6 of 10 from the floor, 3 of 6 shooting from 3, and 5 of 5 from the free throw line. Also added in 7 rebounds as well, and I think that was a huge help to get this team started early. Keeping on with that, Otega-Oweh, talk about the surprise of us for the season. He had 14 points in a little bit over 14 minutes this game, got in the early foul trouble with 2 quick fouls. What more could we have asked from or thought about with Otega-Oweh to start the season?
Yeah, he's definitely, a huge offensive threat that I didn't see coming. Like, this guy really wasn't even that much of a player at Oklahoma last year. He wasn't really even seeing the floor. For him to come and definitively, I think, so far through 4 games, be your best player, I don't know if that continues all year, but to this rate, he's been the best player on the floor every night. Out there. Obviously makes the game-winning plays against Duke. But, yeah, to your point, comes out, only plays 14 minutes because of foul trouble, but still finds a way, goes 5 of 6 from the field. He's my favorite player right now, and there's nobody I enjoy watching more.
Yeah, 14 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 14 minutes. That's outstanding. Even against a team like Lipscomb, who you expect him to put up bigger numbers against, it was phenomenal, his performance in this game. I know Tyler probably wants to talk about Trent Noah. Trent Noah did get into this game. Trent and Travis, those are his guys. Tyler's not from Kentucky, but for some reason he loves these Kentucky boys more than anybody. It was good to see them get in the game. Didn't make much of an impact while they were in. Pope said he was actually very frustrated about the defense once we made those changes in the second half. I think they shot like 62% in the last 10 minutes of the game. Yeah. And Pope's talking about how he wants to keep teams under 39% field goal percentage. He's been trying to hammer that down. I think they end up shooting 38.6% from the field in this game, so keeping them just under that. But I think you're kind of seeing why Trent and Travis aren't necessarily getting on the floor as early as people like Tyler would like.
Yeah, they're young guys, so I don't think, them getting on the court late in the game, totally fine with. I do think they underperformed just based off of, being late in garbage time play. Trent had an opportunity to score that 3 and get to 100 points. I know that was important to him, but they'll get their time, and then we have some good players on the team right now. I think they'll be good for future seasons here, maybe good down the stretch too. So we'll see what they can do, what they can develop into.
Yeah, whether they play or not, really, to be honest with you, doesn't really matter to me. I don't think this is going to be the year you need them, so I'm not somebody that's like you got to get them in there to kind of start finding their footing. We've made the point numerous times they're going to face better competition in practice every day than teams like Lipscomb and then Jackson State coming up. It was a cool moment for Travis Perry to score his first career point. That was exciting, but yeah, I mean Trent Noah, hell, that was a huge three. Missed 100 and would have shot over 50% as a team from behind the arc. But at the end of the day, no real feelings on whether they play or not.
Those dang freshmen killing us on the stat sheet.
I agree with you. I mean, there's really, like you said, they're going to practice against better players than they're playing right now anyways. So seeing them get on the floor, well, it's cool because, all the Big Blue Nation wants to see them play, the Kentucky homegrown kids. At this point, it's more of a feel-good story. And we got to remember, this isn't Reed Sheppard. That was like a one-off case. So getting back to a guy who's shooting even better than Reed Sheppard shot while he was here, in Kobe Brea. I mean, good Lord, he's shooting over 80% from three. Can we keep this going? 80%? What do you think?
3 for 3, the other night. I don't know if he can stay at an 80% clip. That's a little absurd, but I mean, as pure and consistent of a shooter as we've ever seen. I mean, who's he up there with? Obviously, Reed set the single season record percentage last year. I mean, I guess that's just going to last for a season because I think Brea is going to shoot over 50% this year, it seems like. But I mean, he's up there with like Devin Booker in February his year. I mean, the guy just does not miss. I mean, and he's doing it in so many different ways, right? He had the one where he pump fakes, the guy blows right by him, then he comes back later, gets a nice little catch and shoot one, and then that step back was dirty. So, I mean, I don't know if he can keep up 80%, but I expect him to be right at 50 all year long.
Yeah, I mean, he had 12 points in this game. I mean, I think underrated so far of what his game has been is his rebounding. I know he had 5 rebounds against Duke. He has 7 in this game against Lipscomb. For us to be able to play the style of basketball that we want to play, we're going to need guys like Jackson to get 7 like he got, like Kobe to step in there and get 7 like he got as well. So I think it's very good to see these guards getting in the mix and being able to go because, I don't know if you're going to be able to count on Amari to get 11 rebounds every single game, being the traffic rebounder in that group.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can count on him to get 11, but I mean, pretty consistently he has, right? Like, as long as he's not getting in foul trouble, I think he's going to be out there grabbing some boards. Andrew Carr was right at 5 again. But I'll tell you, my biggest, back to Kobe Brea, my biggest complaint with him right now is I want him to shoot more. Every time, he hasn't taken a ton of, contested shots, which we know he can make. He took them at Dayton. So, I'd like to see him get that volume up a little bit.
Yeah, Travis Ford was on the broadcast. I think it was one of his first games doing as a broadcaster. He talked about how much of a nightmare it was trying to scheme and, play defense against a guy like Kobe Brea because he was at St. Louis last year and had to play him in the Atlantic 10. So I think it's good to hear that, even when he was, 6-man at Dayton last year, he was still causing all these problems and he was still a matchup nightmare. I think it's really good to see, that come to fruition this earlier in the season. To where you need a 3, guess what? We're designing to play for Kobe Brea. And we also have 5 or 6 guys that we could probably do the same thing with.
Yeah, that was, I don't know if you heard the Lipscomb coach after the game, but he was talking and he was like, in my 6 years of being a head coach at D1 basketball, this Kentucky team is by far the most difficult offense I've ever gone against. He's like, you have to be perfect for them to not get an open shot. And when you got 5 guys that can shoot it at all times, any open shot's a good shot. So, teams just have to play perfect defense against us with the lineups we can roll out there.
Yeah, you kind of hit on that. Just during the game, they came out with a stat line, and I thought it was interesting. I know it's early on, but right now we're in the SEC. We're ranked first in points per game, 3-point shots made, assists. So we're doing pretty good on offense. I think we can hold strong with that. Our defense obviously we want them to play well, but I think as long as we can outshoot other people, that'll be good down the road.
Those numbers will get inflated a little bit Friday night too, with that team they're about to play.
Yeah, if they don't put up, I'll be in attendance. If I don't see at least 100 for Jackson State, I'll be thoroughly disappointed.
Can we get to an average of over 100 per game? That'd be pretty sick. We're pretty close. I mean, we're at 93.3 right now. Well, that was in game, so I'm sure it's gone up a little bit, but I mean, it's still up there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance we get that close after this Jackson State game. I think really the story of the offense is guys that you really didn't expect to be big parts of this offense. You know, we talked about Lamont Butler and everything we talked about is just his defense, his defense, his defense. He was 6 from 8 from the floor in this game, had 16 points, and once again missed another wide open layup. So I'm really hoping this doesn't become a thing, because you know in those tight games like the game against Duke, one possession can switch the entire game. But he's been outstanding as well. Him and Otega, I think, are both of our best guys off the ball. When we need just somebody to dice up into the lane at this point.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I almost think Kobe Bryant is probably shooting better from 3 than Lamont is on
he is.
wide open layups. like it is crazy. But yeah, kind of to your point, the efficiency from the other night. Shot just over 50%, 54%, and then 48 from 3. Like, just these guys don't take bad shots, and in part that's Pope's offense, but like, there's never really a time where we need Jackson Robinson to break down his man and go one-on-one because we're struggling to get something. Like, they're going to move the ball around, they're going to find the open man, and to the point earlier, when any of these guys are open, you're feeling good about it.
Yeah, and speaking of moving the ball around, this is actually one of our worst games when it just comes to assist-wise. We only had 10 in the entire game. I don't think that's something you necessarily read too much into. I think this was kind of just how the game played out, especially in that second half when we really took off points-wise. That was just – we gave up 42 points in the second half as opposed to 26 in the first half. I think you kind of see our ability to kind of change with our opponent game in and game out. What kind of – because Lipscomb was holding the ball almost the entire shot clock in that first half. It was a real slow-moving first half. And then coming out of halftime, that completely switched, just up, down, backing down the court. And it was, good to see that the offense can, switch up that easily, going from holding the ball, maybe milking it a little bit, to the very next half, okay, we're pushing, we're getting out and running. I'd like to have seen the defense be a little bit better in the second half. But at this point, I think we're just nitpicking a little bit when we're trying to play teams like Lipscomb.
Yeah, definitely. And, to your point, when the freshmen came in, Lipscomb really kind of took advantage there, But we've seen this team when their energy's in it, not to say their energy isn't always in it, but, when they need to start this game, obviously great first-half defense. The end of the Duke game, great second-half defense. When they realize, they need some stops, they'll go out and get them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I know a story came out that Pope's out there quizzing guys during practices about scouting reports.
Dude, that's that. I love it.
How nice of a change is that?
Oh my God!
Just finished listening to Calipari say we don't know who we play next, and you're talking about Pope is over here quizzing guys and saying, "Hey, number 6, what's his tendencies on?" Yeah, it's insane to think about that. We prepare for this. A game against Lipscomb is how we prepare for a game like this. What do you think we're going to do when March rolls around and we're down in Nashville competing for the SEC tournament? And in March, when we're, God knows where, but hopefully, we're finishing it off.
It's so different, I know every pod we talk about, I don't want to just talk about the past, but
everyone,
it's so different. How you got Calipari in the SEC tournament being how am I going to scout? I don't know who we play next. I guarantee you, Pope's going in there with every team in the SEC, asking his guys, what do we know about number 4 on Texas? What do we know about number 10 on Missouri? He'll have them prepared for every single team. And then towards the end of the Calipari era, when John Robick left, we had grad assistants doing our scouting and giving it to Cal, and Cal wouldn't even look at it. He would walk in and write on the whiteboard, "Fight." He's like, "Yeah, I threw up the game plan and just wrote fight." It's so refreshing. It's so unbelievable. And then Pope talking about afterwards neuroscience and being we're not thinking about the things that can go wrong. It's proven that you get better results if you're thinking about what goes right. The guy he gets it. It's so refreshing.
Yeah, I don't genuinely think there's going to be a podcast that goes by where Cal's name is not going to be mentioned. At some point, it's all we've known for 14 years. It's going to happen. We're going to beat a dead horse while we can. And guess what? I'm not going to back down. You Boyers, this. I haven't been a Calipari guy for quite a while. Still am not. I will find a way to make my way down there on February 1st. I'm not paying $500 for a ticket, but I guarantee you I will be there somewhere, and I will make sure he hears me.
Yeah, I was a Cal guy for a very long time, but you know, we all talked about what the last few years looked like, and I mean, I came on here in our preseason pod, and I said Arkansas doesn't make the tournament. They'll probably make the tournament. That was probably a bit of an overreaction, but like they're not going to be a good team. They're going to be very similar to I think our second year with Oscar. They're going to be okay. They'll probably get a big win or two. They'll lose a lot of games they shouldn't, and then they'll lose to an okay team in the tournament.
Yeah, we'll cut off the Calipari conversations there. I mean, just to transition into our next topic, talking about the freshmen. I mean, Colin Chandler looks like he's starting to get his footing back a little bit. Played 16 minutes in this game, had 5 points, 2 of 6 shooting, 1-1 from the free throw line. But I mean, did you see that? I don't know how he saved it from going out of bounds in general. Between the legs, long snap on the money. Back in my punter days, I could have only wished for a good long snap like that. Not going to throw my long snapper under the bus or anything, but I was out there bobbing and weaving trying to get those. Tyler, did you see that play, and what'd you think of it?
Yeah, it was a pretty epic play. I was watching it, and by this point, the score was pretty out of hand. At this point, Kentucky was a clear favorite to win, but that got the crowd back into it for sure. I think we were waiting for the crowd to get into it with the other freshmen there taking their shots, and hopefully they're going to make their threes. But this was definitely the energizer at the end for the fans.
Yeah, it was nice to see Colin have his moment there. To your point, Cam really kind of started to get his footing back, or starting to get his footing back after not playing basketball for 2 years, but. He's the freshman that will play this year. In part, he's not really he's a freshman, but he's not really a freshman at 20 years old. He's a guy that I do think has a ton of potential for this particular year. We've said we don't really care about seeing Trent Noah or Travis Perry play this year. I think there's going to be games where Colin Chandler, we're really leaning on. So it was cool to see him have that moment. It was a great play. Amari throwing it down on the other end, but yeah, I liked what I saw from Colin Tuesday night.
And Colin kind of gives us that athleticism that really not many people on this team have. We're used to the crazy athletes coming into Lexington. This year, we're more of just a well-rounded basketball team. So it is good to see a guy that, can still make those athletic, acrobatic plays like he did on Tuesday night. Speaking of, athletes, I mean, Brandon Garrison with another solid game, 8 points, 5 rebounds, in 20 minutes on 4 of 7 shooting. My only complaint with Brandon Garrison so far is, can we stop taking the long twos with the foot on the line? He took another one on Tuesday night. Just give me like 6 inches back, and we're hitting threes or missing threes. Like we said, we're done with that era of basketball. We don't want to be taking long twos. My only complaint with Brandon Garrison, but he's been better than I thought he was going to be coming out of Oklahoma State last year.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, it seems like he would fit on those last 14 years of teams really well. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy, like, he is the guy that I could see at the next level, right? Super athletic, especially if he keeps continuing to work on that shot. And I really like what he brings to the table. I think going back and forth from him and Amari is a very solid 1-2 punch that I think is going to be very underrated for us, going forward, and especially once you get into tournament play. But really like what I see from him. He's a guy that plays with a high motor. He's always, running to the offensive glass. He's always cutting at the right time. I really like what I see from him.
Yeah, it's been nice to see that even when, Amari comes out of the game, we still have a big that we can run the offense through. Feels like all three of the bigs, whether it's Carr, Amari, or Brandon Garrison, we can run the offense through what would traditionally be a 4 or a 5 that would just stand down low in the paint or come out for pick and rolls. So I think it's good to see, no matter who's out on the court, whatever foul trouble we get into, we can run through the 4 or 5 with Garrison, Carr, or Amari.
Yeah, and at the bigs, but also that's just kind of how Pope's built this team, right? You can kind of interchange anybody for anybody. Not to say some guys aren't better than others, but, when you go to your bench, style-wise, you can continue to do what Kentucky wants to do, and that's something that's so huge. It's not like in years past where you go to your bench and all of a sudden you got 4 guys out there that can only dribble and drive and can't shoot. we're going to be able to play the exact same style pretty much with any lineup that Pope mix and matches out there.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. Just having the depth in this roster of like guys who are like-minded, guys who play somewhat similarly. Like even though Amari and Brandon are not, they're not the same player by any means, but they can play the same role in this offense. And having a bench that goes 10, 11 deep where you can have guys that can consistently come in, just like we talked about with Lamont. When he comes off the floor, we got Kerr who can be that up-tempo guy the same way, Lamont is. Kobe Bray goes off the floor, we can have Ainsley Almanor in there who's also a deadly shooter as well. So I think that depth is really starting to prove. I think it proved mainly in that Duke game. I think when you saw Duke getting tired and, we were rotating in fresh bodies in and out. And I think that's kind of some of the analytics that Mark Pope has been diving into, seeing, hey, when I run Amari Williams for 6 minutes straight, I know I got to get him out because the production dips. Seeing stuff like that from this coaching staff early, I think, is paying huge dividends. Yeah.
And, another game where nobody played over 25 minutes, to your point of keeping everybody fresh, your starting five at the end of games is going to be fresh and ready to go. They're not going to be ran into the ground. And I think that was the biggest factor in the Duke game. And, obviously this ain't 2015 levels deep, with the platoon and everything, but, you got 10 guys that can, like we said, they can all go in for each other, and I think that just makes it to where you can play so many different lineups and you can keep guys so fresh.
Yeah, one of the stats that I think that kind of, show that and show the depth of this team is kind of the plus-minus that we're going into. Tyler, talk a little bit about some of the plus-minus for some of our guys.
It's really incredible to watch. I'm looking at the previous game here just with Lipscomb, but, 8 of our guys were in the positive, which is great. And of those 8 guys, 7 of them were in double-digit positive. Jackson Robinson with leading the charge with 29, and Andrew Carr with 29 as well. You got Amari Williams with 27, and Lamont and Butler as well. I said that from the beginning. It seemed like he had a really good first half, but he was plus 27 as well. So a lot of these guys are really getting up there in the double digits, and it just kind of goes to show that you'll have the starting 5 on the court, but you can rotate these guys in and out, and we're still going to have a positive impact on the court.
Yeah, it's proving dividends. Like you said, there was 4 guys who had in the plus minus, they were in the negatives, and those are all guys that for the most part we don't see playing huge roles. The only one that kind of stands out a little bit is Ainsley Almanor. It was only -3, but he was getting a lot of playing time with Colin, with Travis, and with Trent, who both, still working through their growing pains as we talked about a little bit earlier. But it's great to see Kentucky's going to be back in action on Friday night against Jackson State. Don't really know too much about Jackson State except for the fact that they're 0-5, and the closest they've come to winning a game is by losing by 13 points. So that being said, no Travis Hunter, no Shadur or Shiloh Sanders in this game. So it's going to be nice to see, what Kentucky fans do show up for this Friday night game. Jacob, what do you think about the game for Friday?
Yeah, I think Kentucky should roll. I mean, this is not a very good football or basketball team. Sorry, you were talking about the Sanders. It threw me off there. But yeah, no, this is not a good basketball team. I actually think Minnesota State, who we played in the preseason, I think they're a better team than this Jackson State team. So expect honestly like a Wesleyan kind of game. Like I don't think it's close. I don't think it's ever close. I think the Cats get up over 110 and just really kind of roll.
So what you're saying is I can get tickets in the upper level, and then hopefully by halftime I can make my way down to the lower level?
I mean, maybe, but I don't know. People are just excited about this team. Is anybody going to want to leave?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, even the games like this one, this was a 15 to 25 point game the entire game, and fans stayed till the very end. And I think some of that is because, of how great Pope is with the fans. He stays after, signs all those autographs for fans, does his radio show live from the court, and you see some of the players, going into the stands after the game, talking to the players. It's really feeling like this is just like a community. Like this is all like, we're all in this together now. There is no more like divide, you're on this side or that side. It feels great to all be a part of one big Blue Nation.
Yeah, it's fun, and shoot, if I was going Friday night, I don't care if they were up by 70. I don't think I'd be leaving, but I think this place is going to stay packed for the future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, just what are you thinking projections wise for this game against Jackson State? I think we're easily scoring over 100, and I know it's something crazy to predict that you're going to score easily over 140 minutes of basketball, but I think easily scoring over 100. I think Pope's going to kind of hammer down on the defense, especially after seeing what the last 8 minutes of the game against Lipscomb Bisons was. So I think he's really going to hammer that down. They're going to come out with an iron fist in this game and make sure that the defense is not the reason that Pope's upset again next week. So man, it's hard to how hard it is to call projections for games like these because we don't know too much about Jackson State. But I'm gonna say Kentucky finds a way to win, of course. Go to 5-0. I'm gonna say they find a way to score 111 on the dot, 111 to 62. I think we end up winning by not quite 50, but 49.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's a Wesleyan kind of game. I'll say the Cats get right to 120. 120 on the nose, and they hold Jackson State 58. I think it's going to be very similar to that Wesleyan game we saw.
Yeah, Boyers, you're getting a little ballsy there, man. It's you're averaging 3 points a minute there, so
they can do it. If there's a team out there in the country that can do it, it's this one.
you're absolutely right. If there's a team out there, if they wanted to go a full 40 minutes, full fledged, throttle down the entire time, absolutely, it's possible. I think what's going to end up happening, they're going to have a big lead. They're going to do what they did last game, and they're going to throw the freshmen back in, and I look forward to seeing what Trent Noah and Travis Perry can do out in the court. I just don't think they're going to put up the 120 that you're expecting. However, I do think Trent Noah is going to redeem himself for that missed 3 ball, and he's going to get him to 101. So I have my score prediction at 101 to 65 here.
And I don't know if Tyler knows somebody in the Trent Noah family or the Trent Noah household. He is definitely his favorite player. I mean, man. This guy, I haven't heard him talk about anybody else more than he talked about.
I'm investing into this for the long haul because, next year when he's like the MVP, he's going to be like, I remember that guy from that Cats Talk podcast. Yeah, he's my guy. I want him to be my agent in the NBA. And then all of a sudden, we'll be, see you guys later. I'm going to be the, breaking the news in the NBA. I'm just doing it for the long haul.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, buddy. But what helped me sleep last night was watching Antonio Reeves go off for 34 with the Pelicans. I mean, talk about a feel-good story. A guy who started at Illinois State, came and played 2 years at UK, had an incredible senior season last year for us, one of the better senior seasons we've seen in some time, just because, Kentucky, there was not a thing as much seniors coming. There wasn't, senior day wasn't much of a big thing. Seeing him go out, not only, got underdrafted, got drafted in the second round, should have been drafted higher, goes out, his real first opportunity to play and get real minutes for the Pelicans, goes out and scores 34. I'm not sure who you could root for more than Antonio Reeves.
Yeah, on his birthday nonetheless. But, I mean, watching him last night, man, it just made me think, imagine if he had one more year, if he was a year later and he was here with Pope, like, good night. It would be ridiculous.
Just imagine if we got to the Pope era 1 year sooner with Reed, Rob, and Antonio. But, again, we don't want to harp on the negatives or on the team from last year. This is a new team. We are 4-0, looking to go to 5-0 after Friday's games. Trying to tune up, get ready for conference play coming up in the not-so-distant future. Plus, here in about a week and a half now, we got Clemson and Gonzaga back-to-back. 2 tests on the road. That'll be a very big week to kind of show us where this Kentucky team is at. All right, we're going to introduce a new segment, at the end of each podcast. Just give you an update on how, your NBA Cats are doing. We already talked about Antonio Reeves had 34 points last night. Last night, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think, surprised nobody by scoring 28 points as well. And then Devin Booker for the Suns had 33. So it's nice to see, some of our NBA Cats continuing to do well in Devin and Shai's case, but then feeling so good like we talked about for Antonio. With that being said, there's our segment on the NBA Cats. Tyler, why don't you go ahead and get us out of here?
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in for yet another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. We're your hosts, Cam'Ron Johnston, Jacob Boyers, and myself, Tyler Britton. We're here every single week after every single game talking about the basketball breakdowns. Make sure to tune in, share with your friends and family, check us out on social media, give us a follow, and go Cats.
How about let's beat Texas tomorrow? on Saturday.
Yeah.
Let's beat Texas. All right, go Big Blue.
Wait, hang on. Do they cover?
Do they cover? They don't only
21.
cover. They keep this within 10.
Oh, that's bold.
That's not what I put on the prediction for the podcast, but it is in this one. So that's why you got to watch. You're going to get two. I talked myself into it as farther as the week gets into.
Yeah.
This is
Later in the week,
by
talk myself
by
into.
Saturday morning, you're going to be hitting the Kentucky money line.
You never know. You never know.
I still can't trust you off that shirt you're wearing that podcast. So
was a
on
great
that note, you guys have a good night.
Go Big Blue.
Go Big
Go
Blue.
Big Blue.